Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we reclaim yet another space in my garden. So let's go. We're on the north side of my house. We have worked on a flower bed right behind me, and we reclaimed that spot in a previous video. I haven't been able to weed this area, but today is the day. This is roughly a 15 by 15 spot, and I chose this spot based on these two trees that are right here. And I want to go from where those trees are and work my way to the back here where we weeded before. It's going to take me a while. I know there's a lot of fun perennials in here. There are definitely weeds. You can see the beautiful purple clover. As beautiful as it is, it's got to go. So we are going to weed. I'm going to show you what I find in here because I don't even know what's in here. But before I start weeding, just for reference, I want to show you how much area is in this space. There's a lot of beautiful flowers in here. There are daylilies, there are peonies. I'm not really sure what else there is. So let's get weeding. When it comes to weeding this bed, I wanted to come up with a plan. And I felt like a good plan would be find a space that I think I can tackle fairly easily because this space is definitely overwhelming for me. And I used the trees as a guide. And I thought that I think realistically it's possible for me to weed this area if I pick a starting and an ending point. So those are my starting and ending points from one tree to the other. And then the second thing I thought of was, do I start from this front side of the bed or do I start from the back side of the bed? I was originally going to start from the back side of the bed because I kind of felt like that's where I left off last time when I tried to reclaim this space. But that back side of the bed, I would say, is more overwhelming than the front side for the simple reason that on the front side, I have recently weeded this area within the last month or so. So the weeds are manageable. They're not too bad. And I want to set myself up for success. I don't want to be overwhelmed. I don't want to give up. So that's why I chose the front side of the bed, and I'll work my way to the back side where it's a little more overwhelming. These are things that I think are good to keep in mind when you're tackling a project like this. It recently rained. That's the other thing that's helping me out here. And that makes it easier for me to be able to remove these weeds. Part of the reason why this section has gotten so weedy is number one, neglect. And number two, I have top dressed this bed with composted horse manure. It was composted, but not by me. So it was just sitting there for a long time, breaking down over the years, and it had a lot of weed seeds in it. If I had actually properly heated it up to about 130 or 140 degrees Fahrenheit, then I would have a lot less weeds in this bed. But it's all good. I have been able to improve the structure of the soil, and ultimately that's a good thing for my flower gardens. But I now need to tackle the problem of weeds. Right here, these are daffodils that bloomed in the springtime, and they looked really pretty. And you can see they actually still are very green. It is middle of June. I don't want to cut them back yet. And right over here, this is a aster that blooms in the fall time. It's a purple color, really pretty. I am going to be digging out some pansies that I have towards the front of this bed. This is one of them. And the reason is I just want to have a clean slate. I'm actually going into this project with an open mind. I'm very excited. There's a lot of possibility, but we can't do much of anything until the weeding has been done. This is what I've weeded so far. And that probably took me about 15 minutes. You can see there's still a lot to be done on that side, but we're focusing between these two trees. And we have the daffodils and the aster towards the front. And just past that are a bunch of daylilies. It's very hard to get in there with the daylilies that are in the way. I'm trying to focus on getting the clover. And if you have clover, you know that it really roots itself. I want to switch my plan, and that's okay to do. I'm going to move towards the back of the bed. And I'm going to work my way from the back of the bed towards the front of this bed, because it's a little discouraging trying to weed around those daylilies. So what I'm going to do, though, before I do that, I've decided I am going to cut back the daffodils. The daffodils are looking very leggy. They're falling over. I want this area to look clean. So let's do that together. And after we cut the daffodils back, we're going to go to the back of the bed. One thing that I've learned with gardening is it's okay to change your plan. I think it's good to experiment and try different things. My plan was to start at the front of the bed and to not cut back my daffodils. I've quickly changed my mind, and it's okay to do that. I'm still going to leave some green. That should help feed the bulbs. I just want this area to look clean and tidy. And if I do choose to divide any of these daffodils over the next week or so, then at least I know where they are. I've mentioned this in many of my videos, but a lot of these plants came from my mother-in-law, Sue's house. She was an avid gardener. A lot of my gardening inspiration came from two people, my mother-in-law, Sue, and my dad, Raj. And what a great feeling to look in my garden and know that many of these plants came from Sue's garden. And a few of these plants came from my parents' garden as well. Just by doing this little amount of weeding and cutting back of the daffodils, I'm already feeling great about this space. Well, I promised you I would show you any plants that I'm uncovering, any little hidden treasures amongst this weedy flower bed that will soon not be weedy. And one thing that I discovered is right over here. And what it is it's a clematis that came from my mother-in-law's house. And it's very likely not going to bloom this year. And it's been hidden amongst the weeds. This hosta is taking over. So, and I don't think it's ever bloomed, to be honest with you, even in the space when the hosta was smaller. I need to rehome this. I need to put it in a sunnier spot. I want it to thrive and grow, but that's one of the little treasures I wanted to point out. Okay, let's head to the back of my flower bed and let's tackle this project from over there. Here's the spot I was talking about earlier, where we weeded and reclaimed it and planted some pretty things. And this is where we're going to pick up on the back side of this bed. I think back here, I feel like I have a little more space to work. I don't have all those tight daylilies getting in my way, because again, it's very tricky when you're pulling out all this clover. And if I'm going to go through the effort of weeding, I want to do a really good job. I want it to be thorough. I want to get all the weeds by their roots. That way I won't have to come back in here and do a heavy weeding as the year goes on. Naturally, weeds will still appear, and that's okay. That's all part of gardening. I just want to make sure that I'm doing a pretty thorough job at this time. When I was working on the other side of the bed there, I was feeling really good. Things were coming along. I hit a little bit of a roadblock and I adjusted. I adjusted by coming to this side of the bed. The amendments that I added to the soil have been wonderful. I'm not too worried about all these weeds. That's just part of the process. You can see just nice how and dark that this soil is now. Considering I'm really just creating these gardens out in the woods. It's where the lawn ends and the woods start. That's where I've made these beds. So I want to make sure I take off as much of the good soil as I can and leave it behind. So my plan for weeding right now is to go where the bucket is I have a Miss Kim lilac right over here, that far, and then I'm going to work my way all the way to where this bed ends and the lawn starts. All right, I'm going to keep weeding. I'm going to show you what treasures I uncover along the way. I'm showing you the angle from where the lawn ends and this flower bed starts. And you can see I made some pretty good progress in there. I'm going to take you in for a closer look. Right there is where the Miss Kim lilac is. So I did pretty good with weeding this area. And I'm going to show you a couple of the little plants that I ran across as I was weeding in here. I found some nice perennials. Right over here is a yarrow, and right next to it is a daylily. I'm not sure what kind of daylily, but if I had to guess, it's the Stella d'Oro. And right behind it is another daylily. And what else did we find? Another daylily right here. And right next to the daylily, this is bee balm. And I have some more bee balm right over here. And another perennial right here, which I think is a Veronica. And these are just some daffodils that I'm going to cut back. I put these perennials in this bed temporarily as a holding spot because I didn't have an actual nursery bed. But these plants are not thriving in this section for the simple reason that they don't get enough sun. I am going to go ahead and dig these out, partially because they need to get moved out of this bed anyway, so I can put some more shady plants in here. Partially because it's going to make weeding around this area easier. Let me go ahead and pot these guys up. I had some plants that did not survive the winter in my nursery bed. One of them was hollyhock, and I believe the reason was because it might have been the annual type that blooms the first year. I thought it was a biennial, so I planted them last year and figured they would bloom this year. And not only did they not bloom, they didn't even come up. So I had a whole bunch of empty pots. So I pulled those pots from the nursery bed area, dirt and all, and I'm actually able to reuse those pots for purposes like this. So here's one pot, here's another. And it freed up space in my nursery bed for other plants that need to be planted in there. Like these. If I want, I can plant these in my nursery bed now. What I do is I just dump the dirt out and I put it back in the pot, but just enough so that I can then figure out based on the plant how deep to plant it. And then I can backfill. Seems like a lot of work to weed this bed and do what I'm doing, but in the end, it will be so worth it. I'll have plants out of this bed that I didn't want to be in this bed permanently, such as this yarrow, because they need more sun. I can rehome the plant. I know my sister-in-law is looking for a pink yarrow, and I know this is a pink one, so I can give it to her. I can add it as part of my nursery sale if I want to do that. Or I can put it somewhere else in my yard where it's a little bit sunnier. But definitely pulling these out makes it easier for me to weed this bed because I know that there's some clover inside of this daylily. Since the daylily was pretty small, I was able to easily divide it. You can see there's a couple of buds here. It's ready to bloom. Got some more pots. Right there is the Miskin lilac. And you can see that I dug up all the perennials that were in the way. That shouldn't be in this area because it's too shady. And what I will do is at the end of this video, I will show you all the perennials that I was able to salvage and dig up so that they can be rehomed. But we still have plenty to weed, so I'm going to keep on going. I'll show you what other treasures I uncover in here. It's like peeling an onion. We're at the next layer of weeds. Over here is another daylily, and right next to it we have some more bee balm. I'm pretty sure it's the red colored bee balm. And then this right here is the oxeye Shasta daisy. And I actually have a bunch of it. It is really pretty. Some people consider it aggressive, almost like a weed. I don't. I think it's really pretty. I just don't want it in this bed, at least right now. I want it in pots so I can place it strategically in my yard. So I'm going to dig those up. I'm going to dig the bee balm and the daylily. So I will get that dug up and I'll show you how it turns out. So I dug up a bunch more perennials. Over here are daylilies. This over here, we have a bunch of bee balm and a possible perennial, but I'm not sure. I dug it up anyway, just to be safe. The next section that I'm going to tackle will be all of the oxeye daisies that are along here. And I think once I dig those up, I'm going to feel like I made some really good progress. I will be about 1/3 done with this area that I wanted to tackle today. So let me move these perennials into an area where I can give them water and then to tackle those oxeye daisies. I'll take the small victories where I can. The oxeye daisy has been dug up and we're doing pretty good. I still see some really pretty perennials in there. You're gonna have to wait and see what I find in this weedy mess. And in case you're wondering, I dug up 4 pots of the oxeye daisy. I still have plenty more in this bed, but those 4 big chunks were a lot. So I'm pretty happy with what I was able to pull out of there. These were the little treasures that I just found as I was digging. These are different types of Nepeta. I believe they're Walker's Low, but I'm not positive. And I remember actually buying them on clearance at Home Depot a few years back. So of course I divided them into 3 pots. And then over here we have a fringed bleeding heart, very pretty color, pink. And then we have some dianthus plants. They're budded up. They look a little sad, but they're alive. And this one has a really pretty color to it. I don't know for sure, maybe they're all the same color. And then over here is a lance leaf coreopsis. And this over here was one of my experiments, and it's a spirea. I had done a hardwood cutting a few years ago, and I found it in the weeds. So here it is. This over here is a Siberian iris, purple color. And this is an ornamental onion. I lost quite a bit of it within the weeds, but I found a piece and I'm happy with that. It has one little bud on it. This is another hardwood cutting. I don't know which plant this is. I'm guessing it's a hibiscus, but I'm not positive. And then I found another red bee balm. And then over here, this is yellow color fall sunflower. These guys have fallen over because the pots are probably too small, but these are a type of allium, and I believe it's called walking onion. But I put them in 4 pots. And this guy that's fallen over is another oxeye Shasta daisy. So I found a lot of treasures as I was just digging, but now let's go ahead and look at the space that I just weeded. So I'm done for today. This is day 1. This should take me 2 days to do this project. That's what I'm estimating. And we started right over here and we edged all the way this way. I did not go very far over here where the lawn is because there's a ton of clover and it's intermingled with the creeping phlox. That's a whole other thing that I'm going to be working on tomorrow. But my husband did come out and help me as well for about 2 hours. And he helped weed over in this section here, which he said wasn't too bad. So he worked in this section here. And I mostly focused over here as well as digging up all those perennials. So we did pretty good for one day. Let me show you a different angle of this bed. So tomorrow we tackle all this area here on the outside. We're at day 2 of this project, and what needs to happen is we need to weed the front section of this bed here up to this tree towards the front, and then up to that tree towards the front. So let's get weeding. It's definitely going to be a little challenging because we have a large piece of creeping phlox right in here. We have a bunch of heuchera towards the front. And then we have another patch of creeping phlox right in there. But I'm up for the challenge. So just a quick update on where I'm at. I basically just took a shovel and I dug out a chunk of the weeds that were over here. Also, this heuchera, which is so pretty, it had a lot of weeds in it. So I did have to dig it up and take the weed out. It came from this section here. I actually have other heuchera that I want to plant in this area. And when I planted this whole border of heuchera that goes this way, I planted it with the intention of wanting to move it around my yard over time. So I'm taking advantage of this opportunity. I divided this in half, took out the weeds, and I will show you where I'm going to be planting this. I'm very excited because I've been wanting to add heuchera to this one section in my garden for a while. So I'll show you where this will be going. When it comes to that big weedy mess that I dug out over there, what I'm doing is I'm basically going through it and pulling out all the clover, and I am finding the creeping phlox hidden amongst this mat here, and I'm pulling the creeping phlox out and pulling it aside. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pot it up, and that's pretty much what I'm working on right now. So I'm going to keep on going. The progress is slow but steady. Over here is where I have a whole bunch of creeping phlox. It's a purple color, and I found one more oxeye daisy. So I potted those guys up, and along the front here, I was able to divide a bunch of heuchera from other areas of my flower beds here, just basically to the left. There were a bunch of heuchera, so I divided them, moved them here. Over here is where the creeping phlox was. I dug all that out. I've decided I don't want creeping phlox here. I might put some hosta at a different time. At this point, I feel like I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. The tunnel being this tree right here. So there are the two trees. We're getting close. So all that's left is I just need to weed this area right here. So let's get at it. I can feel that I'm close to being done with this project. So I just want to go over a few things. This area right here between the two trees is all that's left. And I know that there are a bunch of spring bulbs that I temporarily planted in this area. So I'm going to use a shovel and I'm going to carefully dig out the weeds. I'm sure I will dig out some of the spring bulbs that are shallow, and I will just plunk them back in no particular order just to get them back in the ground. So I just need to finish weeding here, and then I want to show you a few other things. You can see towards the front of the bed that there's a ton of heuchera, and I basically moved a bunch of heuchera around. I'm just looking for different colors, different varieties towards the front. So while I was weeding, I divided and moved heuchera. I want to point out some of the hidden treasures that were discovered during the weeding process. We have some bellflower, or campanula, I believe is how you say it. Very pretty. I love the color of that. I have some sedum over here. There is a yellow colored flower. It's a false sunflower. We have a poppy right over here that's gone by and going to seed, which I'm definitely going to collect the seeds off that one. There are a whole bunch of evening primrose, and they're all budded up, nice bright yellow, which you can see what it looks like over here. We have balloon flower. That's this guy. It's going to be a nice purple color. We have a tall phlox. I'm pretty sure that's a hot pink color. There's echinacea in here. That's probably the purple coneflower. I have some spiderwort. And then we have some very nice iris that, for whatever reason, did not bloom this year, but at least they're alive. So lots of perennials in this bed that were uncovered. Also, I moved a bunch of heuchera down in this one flower bed where it's primarily Stella d'Oro daylilies. So I put all the heuchera towards the front of the bed. I'm very excited because I think it's going to look really pretty as the heuchera gets bigger and fills out. Here are all the perennials that I dug up from this project and I potted up. So I already went over what the perennials were that I dug up, but I just wanted to show you. I have a ton of pots of new plants to play with now. Hooray, the project is done. I am so happy. I think it looks great, and I'm going to take you in for a closer look at a few things. But notice the hosta at the base of the right tree has been removed, as well as its little hidden friend, the clematis. Look how clean that looks. I'm motivated to keep on going now. And at the base of this winterberry bush, there are the hosta. I moved them underneath there. I thought that would look really cute and pretty. And I also potted up that clematis, which surprisingly had a few pieces to it, which I was very excited about. I feel like videos like this hopefully motivate you. They motivate me because I want to do a project where I'm showing you that this can be done. It can be overwhelming, but it can be done. So I think in a way we're motivating each other. So thank you. I hope you're enjoying your gardens as much as I am. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel. And you don't want to miss out as I keep weeding down this way. Until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.